Hello, Teddy.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you well.
How
You
are
hear me
you?
well?
Yeah.
Great. So you suddenly, like you look better live than you're in the photo. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate that.
All right. So we're going to give it like 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Before we get started. So it's more like a fireside chat for today. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions.
Cool.
So you probably don't know Chinese, so don't worry about that. We're going to conduct the chat in English.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so for the parents, so today we are going to have our seminar in English. So we do expect the kids to join. Oh, actually, like my kid is in the seminar as well. So, so I asked him, Teddy is really good. I do really want you to hear from Teddy. So he's really passionate about coding. So he loves coding. So that's why I mean it's good idea for you to join. Like to learn about like how to what really coding is. Like the event fluctuation, like just hear about those kind of stuff, right? So we do encourage the parents to let your kids to join as well today. So it's kind of a bit different from before. Before that, Teddy, so our seminars, our previous seminars mostly towards to the parents. But today we are more like towards to to the kids, right? To the kids who like the mostly high school kids and some middle school kids, or even like at a lower age. So surprisingly, many kids they start coding at a very early age. So I'm not sure if that's your case, but there's something you might want to chat a little bit as well. And also let me see if it's been recorded. Yeah, I think I hit the recording button. So this seminar is being recorded, so we are going to share with the audience. It become public after this. So if some parents like they missed the night seminar, they might still listen to the recording. So that's mostly some rundown, and as usual, like our seminar is very interactive. So we do encourage the parents or the students, if you have any questions, please post it on the chat. So like we will certainly answer the questions. So I mean, like question related to coding, right? So we're not going to answer questions like related to like privacy, something like that. So yeah, so just kidding, right? So I'm sure all questions are related to coding. All right, so maybe let's wait for another like 1 minute, and then we will just get started. Oh, I see that, like not just like the kids, I saw some parents as well. All right, so let me ask. Okay, so I saw some several here. So can anybody like can someone type on the chat like how old which grade is your kid in, right? So if your parents which grade, so which grade is your kid in, if you have students, which grade are you in, right? So you kind of want to know about more about the audience before you get started. If you can just type on chat, right? So you kind of no idea, no. And also you can start posting a question, right? So if you have any question regarding coding, so you can start to post it on the chat. Okay. So we are going to limit tonight's seminar within an hour. So we will have a start at 9 o'clock Eastern time, right? So Teddy, obviously you're not in East Coast right now, so I can see that clearly from a window. So so your skies much brighter than us. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So maybe let's do introduction. Maybe before we introduce the program, maybe let's introduce Teddy maybe first. Okay, so Teddy is a Cornell, right? So major in computer science, and Teddy has been with us for quite some time. Has been teaching Python, like ranging from like the beginning level, medium level, and going into like the advanced level as well. So Teddy is really good at, from my own observation, is very good at explaining things, being extremely patient, and make sure the kids get it, right? And also, like for programming, there's a lot about hands-on experience, hands-on stuff, right? So that's really good at helping the kids to solve problem, right? So because I was majoring in computer science as well. I graduated my bachelor's degree is computer science. Even though I transferred to major in finance and then end up working in Wall Street for many years. So, but I do know programming a little bit as well. So yeah, so hands-on, like working on is really about like you solving problem, right? So Teddy is really good at that. So and Teddy, do you want to add more stuff, add more things about your background? I maybe just like introduce yourself and say hi to everybody.
For sure. So my name is Teddy. Everything Matthew said is correct. I go to Cornell and I'm majoring in computer science. And I'm minoring in game design because that's my dream career, is to work for a video game company, like Riot Games or something like that. I'm in the College of Arts and Sciences, so I'm also studying like a little bit of French and other things. And yeah, I think Matt really hit the nail on the head. I just love coding and solving problems and attempting problems. And you know, learning about what's new and staying up to date on the relevant technology. So, yeah.
Right. So, okay. So I know that, like we kind of have the content, the questions, what we are trying to ask. Yeah, but I'm not going to follow the questions like the orders right now. What I'm more interested is in like, I'm just going to be a little more casual in asking questions. So how do we, so I hear this I hear this question today actually from one of the parents. So it's asking like, okay, so if you are doing a lot of programming, you have a deeper dive into that, does it make you become a nerd? What do you think? Do you think like they make
well, I guess by definition, maybe, but I don't think being a nerd is a bad thing. I think that nerds are smart and they make a lot of money and they're well respected. So if you love programming, I would avoid being afraid of those stereotypes and just do what you like to do because it will reward you. So yeah, don't be
yeah,
afraid of being called a nerd.
yeah. So I asked this question, I just like we can see Teddy, right? Teddy definitely is not like a typical nerd, like he learns French, there's a lot of other activities, so it definitely is not like a nerd, like those guys who only know study, right? So I think that's not really a concern. Okay, so we talk about programming. So what is the definition of programming, right? So then when the high school kids start to learn programming with you, right? So you are our, coding teacher for the summer, right? So how do you define programming? If your kid going to get started, right? So what is it going to learn about programming?
Yeah, so I guess the official definition of programming is just writing computer software, writing computer programs. But it goes beyond that because it's for me, it's like problem solving. You have something you want to achieve, and you can like write out like how you want to do it, and then you can actually apply it with code. And that to me is really fun and rewarding. Um, so yeah, programming can be taken in a bunch of directions. You can because programming is coding software, you can code whatever you want. So if you're interested in computer desktop applications like Microsoft Word or Excel, you could pursue that. Or you could go my route, which is like video games, because I think they're really fun. And or you could go something else. But there's just so many options. So yeah.
I actually have a question regarding regarding like the video game track of the programming. So I know, like a lot of kids, especially boys, they love game, right? They love video games. So, but the thing is like, like playing video game is different from actually like making a video game is different from playing a video game, right? So do you think like making the video games you actually like get like you basically making the program is make it less fun to play video games? What do you think about that?
Um, so making a video game it's like a different type of fun. Obviously, playing video games are great, right? I do that to relax all the time. Making a video game requires a little bit more mental effort, but it's so fun thinking of how you can implement something and then doing it and then seeing your work actually in play. And of course, there's bugs, and you can go and it's really painful to go and debug, but it's part of the process, and it's in the whole thing is just really fun for me. And then finally, I think that once you have a finished product, it's just really amazing to see, okay, I put all this work and time into it, and here's a game that my friends can play, and it's just really cool. And the other thing is that playing video games is, often seen as bad. But when you're making video games, it's like, you're really working, you're coding, you're using your knowledge, and there are careers for it. And I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. So that's why, like I think like in our coding curriculum, so game design is one of the components, right? So when we try to teach coding, we try to make it more fun by like designing the game, something like that. Can you introduce a bit like what types of like the video games design will be suitable for like for beginners, like maybe like the beginners coders, right? So what kind of games do are they able to code?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that for beginners who are learning Python, at least because I teach Python, the best thing we can do is we can sort of learn the language. And then once we get good enough at it, we can create a small desktop application like tic-tac-toe or Scrabble or even chess if you're ambitious. We can just do that using a graphical user interface, and then we can code up all the logic using Python. And you can like get images and fun pictures from the web, and you can use Python to control them and like clicking on them, and they do different things. And at the end of the day, you have a game. And my last class that I taught, we made tic-tac-toe together. And I think it was a good experience. And it's fun to actually not just learn Python, but to make something with it at the end of the course too.
I'm glad that you mentioned Python. So let's talk about Python. So maybe talk about programming, right? So you need to be able to program it in a certain language, right? So which language do you think should be the first language like the kids start coding, and why?
Yeah, it's a little bit controversial, but in my opinion, I think it's Python, because it's not intimidating in the way that, like, I know a lot of colleges like to start with a language called C++, which is like it looks gross, like the syntax, meaning like there's lots of braces and brackets and slashes, and it's really confusing. But Python, you don't really have that. You just have the code, and it's nice and neat, and it kind of looks like English. It's readable. So I really recommend starting with that. And then once you master Python, then it's like a really good chance to look at C++ or Java or something like that.
So in terms of language, right? So I was assuming that if you learn one language, you can use it to code anything. So why do I still, let's say I know Python. So why do I still need to learn Java, or why do I still need C++? So basically, maybe say it another way. So what other language can do, but Python cannot, or maybe like not that easy to do, or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the best answer to this is that every language has like its a best use, right? So there's so many things you can do on the computer. You can like make video games, you can make desktop applications, you can make websites. So if I wanted to make a website, I would learn JavaScript. If I wanted to learn data science and scrape the web for a bunch of data and like make a chart, I would learn Python. And then lastly, if I wanted to make a video game, I would probably learn C#. So really, it's like all of the languages are valid and they're all great, but really it's like what you want to do is where you should start. But still, I still maintain, I think everyone should learn Python just because it's so great for learning how coding actually works and then going from there.
I actually, this very interesting point, like when we talk about Python, this is the real question from a real parent. So the parent was saying that, Python is not a real, coding language. So it's not like a serious coding language. So, like she said, like this, I don't really think, like the kids can learn much from that. So what do you think about that? Like,
I totally understand where it's coming from. It is probably one of the easiest languages. So it's not like the most impressive thing ever if you get good at Python. It still is impressive, but it's not like, I don't know, one of like C++ or something like that. But Python is the most used language. So it is completely valid. Without Python, we wouldn't have Reddit. We wouldn't have a bunch of the games we play online. We wouldn't, and also it's a great tool for learning. So if we want to learn those higher, like more difficult languages, Python is the best place to start, in my opinion. So Python is absolutely critical, and I really recommend it. Yeah.
So Python is basically for everybody, right? Python is for everybody. So, but if you get serious, if you want to become like the programming major, like a computer science major, so Python doesn't seem is good enough. Can I assume that?
Yeah. A lot of schools teach Python, but then after that, they go into Java, and then they go into more complex things that use real difficult, like they're called data structures, like lists and gross things like that. But the reason why a lot of universities start with Python is just again, because it's really, it lets a person learn what coding is actually like, and then you can go from there. It's also really useful for writing small programs and just filtering out like what live web data. Right now, I'm writing an application with one of my students to scrape the internet for the most recent stock data over a period of time and display it with a chart using Python. And it's really cool making this customizable applications. So absolutely, I recommend Python.
Absolutely right, and that's what I agree as. I mean, I agree 100%, right? So it's not only the students who is going to go to computer science major. So basically, like everybody, at some point should learn some programming. So, what age do you think the kids should start learning coding?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I don't know the best age to start, but really, in my opinion, I started learning coding the best when I found a personal interest for it. So if you are young and you really want to learn how to code, any age will work great. There's no set limit, or there's no like you have to be at least 8 years old. Really, whenever you want to start, whenever you show some interest, it's great. The English, in terms of like language, it's really just the words are just like if and. So if you haven't like mastered like English, if you're still like an 8-year-old kid, it shouldn't be a problem. And it's like logical too. So I wouldn't be dissuaded by the fact that you're too young at all.
Yeah, so you understand that, right? So but is there any like math backgrounds does the student need to understand for the students to design? It's not just about language, right? So it's about you need to design the logic, those kind of stuff, like the algorithm, those kind of stuff. So do you think that's like a threshold, like any kind of math concept, like the kids need to understand before the kids can go into like the programming?
Yeah, so when you're just starting to learn Python, all you really need is basic arithmetic. So addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, and then like negative numbers. Once you start getting into more advanced programming, then you might need to use, like for my video games, I often have to like look up mathematical formulas like linear interpolation and stuff like that. But that doesn't come until like you really are starting to work on bigger things. So starting to learn coding, all you really need is that arithmetic. Yeah.
So, and actually, I'm interested. Like, did you take any programming course in high school, or or more like when you go into college and then you really started to do it?
I started teaching myself coding because my school didn't offer programming, unfortunately, which was a bummer. But so I started teaching myself when I was in 10th grade, and then when I got to Cornell, I took like real courses and like I understood what I was doing wrong when I was teaching myself. But so if there's no opportunity to learn at your school, it's okay, because there's tons of resources online for free. And if you're passionate about it, you can totally teach yourself at first.
Very good point. So I want to ask you a question about that, right? So if there are a bunch of free resources online, right? So why would the parents still want to pay, right, to take a live lesson, right, with like the instructor, like let's say with you, right? So another question then I'm asking, like, what can you what's like the what can the free resource offer, like what can and what's the limitation of the free resources, right? So and then what can you try to get, you know what you cannot get from free resources, and what you can get, like from have like a live experience, like the teacher, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the main thing, so from my experience when I taught myself, I did that for a year or two, and then I got to Cornell and I started taking courses, and I'm doing a lot of things wrong. So it's really good when you're starting to learn programming to have someone there to say, okay, we're going to do this the right way. We're going to follow the best practices. So we build those good habits from the start. Otherwise, and I still like suffer a little bit from things I do. I always try to correct it. Like sometimes I forget to document a function, which is basically just making it readable for everybody. And if we really nail in those practices together at the start, it completely transforms your programming abilities. The other thing I would say is that it's really just great to have someone there to push you to think in a different way than you are. So if you're writing a program and it runs, but the code isn't very neat or the logic is a little bit clunky, having someone to say, okay, there's a better way to do this, and then you could also adapt it into a different version or something like that is also really powerful to have. So that's why I would recommend having a tutor. It gives you that, yeah.
How about debugging?
Debugging, exactly. Debugging can be so painful, especially if you're learning how to code and you don't really understand the language yet, and you don't know why something's wrong. Having someone who knows the language and can tell you, or can not just tell you the answer, but can push you to think in a way that will help you solve what's going on or let you know why it's not working, is really nice to have. When I was self-teaching, I still sometimes sought out tutors because I didn't know what was going on. There were concepts that were too deep and advanced that I couldn't figure out myself. So oftentimes you'll get stuck and you need someone to push you in the right direction.
Yeah. So, you know, like when kids start to do coding using the freeway, we don't know what codes they will come up with. So, yeah. So debugging is really like my biggest pain. I hate debugging basically. So if you try to do it on your own, it's really like, I mean, one is the painful thing. I think like, do you have that kind of struggle? I mean, when you're trying to teach yourself, how do you deal with debugging? So maybe there's another question we want to ask, right? So let's say, you know, the kids, they for whatever reason they cannot join like our course, right, or get a live course. So they're going to try the free resources. So how can they, you know, like try to debug themselves?
If you're on your own and you don't have someone with you, the best thing I would do is oftentimes when you get an error, the computer will print out an error message. Just copy and paste that into your browser, and there will be a Stack Overflow post about it, and you can click that, and someone usually explains what it is. But oftentimes you can't find it, so it's really a gamble. So that would be my best recommendation if you are on your own, is to look it up online, look up exactly what it's saying. But again, I think that method also fails to tell you why it's not working. It might tell you, here's the code you want to write instead, so you can copy paste the new code, but then you still might not understand why that works. And that understanding is really critical into becoming a better programmer and learning new languages.
Yeah, it sounds like to me, you know, if you're using like the free resources, you can learn the language in paper, but it doesn't seem like it can make you a good programmer. So it doesn't really translate it, you know, from that, you know, like from the experience or the thinking process, like into that, right, into for the students. So yeah, it seems like I to me, I think like it's the good like a live instructor is going to be much more useful. And also we talk about Cornell. Actually, interestingly, I was in Cornell 2 weeks ago. I drive by the engineering building.
Awesome.
how maybe just share with us about, you know, like experience in Cornell, like in the computer science. How do you like it? You know, like anything special, anything fun, or what's like the computer science major looks like in Cornell, right? So I mean, a lot of the parents, they might the kids might be young. Eventually, they want to go to like the programming computer science major, and they might consider Cornell as one of the options, right? So can you share a little bit about your experience in Cornell?
Yeah, so Cornell, I think the best part about the computer science major is that the professors are excellent. They are they are all, you know, they've been doing this forever, and they really know their stuff, and they can explain it and teach it in a way that's understandable. So they're not just throwing complicated concepts at you. They're making sure you understand it. The culture is a bit competitive. It's how it's going to be. But it really also is good because it pushes you to work harder and to push yourself into becoming better. I If I had to like rate it in a way, I would say it's good, and I would recommend computer science definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so maybe let's talk a little bit about the teaching, right? So you are so we want you to have this seminar today. So I want the parents to get to know you a little bit more, right? So and I think like no matter the parents want to join our program or not, right? So I think it's still good to know about, you know, like how to get started with coding, right? Just say we start with the first language of Python, right? So what does the curriculum look like, right? So what do you teach, you know, first, what do you teach second, and then how do you step by step, you know, lead the kids into the programming world, right? So it's not really like saying the parents have to join a program, but it's actually for reference. So if the parents want kids to start learning, what is like a natural, logical way for them to adapt, right? So can you share more about your coaching, you know, or your methods about, you know, how to teach the kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So we start from the very, very beginning just to make sure we're all on the same page. We start with the installation of Python. So we get it on our machine. And then from there, we start learning about the most basic things. So, and we go slowly and make sure that we understand step by step. So like variables, storing data using variables, and then using those variables to do cool things. And then we might get into a little bit more like basic, like syntax, like if statements. So logical, like operations, like if this is true, then we'll do this, or if that's true, we'll do that. And we'll do that maybe for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then we can progress into more advanced things, still relatively basic, but advanced in the context, like loops, like looping over items, like a list of items. We can like loop over that, and we can do cool things. A lot of the time, I like to assign homework problems that really try to, we take what we learned from the lesson and then maybe make you think of a new thing to add on to it for the next time. So it might be a problem that like takes like a what we call a string, so a sequence of letters, like a name, and like transforming it to making them all capitalized. Or we could take like a list of numbers, like 1, 2, 3, and editing it so that it's just a list of the even numbers. And these are really, really basic operations, but they teach you how to think. And once you get to more complex things, you'll be really prepared on how to do those things. So, and then at the end of the course, I like to build a small application to have something to show for all the learning that you've done.
And this is for the Python level 1, right?
Yes, that would be the introductory Python.
Introduction level 1. So do you think you can give instruction about like the next level as well? So after that, you know, like let's say we do Python level 2, like what will be continued to add up to that?
Python level 2, we would start with reviews. So we'll go through everything we do in Python level 1 in the first couple weeks. So we'll make sure everybody's up to speed. Then we'll start looking at more complicated things like importing like an API. So like which means like using the internet to gather data. We'll talk about something called recursion, which is a really important computer science concept that they will use all across university, and it's really good to have a head start on that. And we'll talk about like runtime analysis. So how fast is your program? What's a better way to write this code? So it's like level 1, I would say it's really learning the syntax, meaning like how to actually write the language out. And then level 2, it's like how can we take it to the next level and become better programmers?
Okay, so that's for the Python. So so let's say, you know, that there's one the parents or the kids, they want to get more serious about programming. So you want to learn C++, let's say, right? So Is it okay if they skip Python and then they just start right into the C++ course?
You could do that. I personally don't recommend it because I think it's going to be a lot of a steeper slope to climb if you just start with C++. It is very doable though, so it's possible. But I really, really recommend starting with Python because if you start with Python, you learn about memory, you learn about how things work and the basic concepts. Then when you get to C++, you'll breeze through the early steps and really understand what's going on.
So let's say like a kid, he go through the Python level 1 and Python level 2. Do you think it's good enough to start to learn C++, or he needs to continue to learn more about Python before he gets started with C++?
Yeah, if you've done level 1 and level 2 and you understand what's going on, C++ should be totally great. Yeah.
So very good, right? So C++, because there are still some kids they want to learn C++. One reason is like C++ not really taught by many high schools.
Right.
And also C++ is the standard language for USACO. So USACO is the computer Olympia, right? So it's like the competition, the computer competitions for high school students. So that is like the needs for the kids to learn C++ if they want to really go deeper into like the programming. So eventually I think like Python sounds like it's more like a stepping stone, and for you to go into this world, right? And then you get it, and then for you to get some basic concept, as you mentioned, the memory, those kind of stuff, and then you can start to have like a more legit coding language and stuff from there. So okay, so I think I covered a lot of the question, right? So why do we want to learn Python? So it seems like a lot of fun, a lot of reason, right? So happy to get the high paid job, and then it lead you to competition, and lead you to many open doors and many kind of stuff. So okay, so what was the fun about programming, right? So you mentioned about you specifically like coding video games, but just by coding, do you see the fun of coding? Oh, actually, let me ask the other, and let me ask another question first. I mean, like, so in your teaching, right? In your teaching, what do you see the most challenge or the most obstacles of the kids learning the language, learning coding?
Yeah, so I think the most challenging part when I'm teaching, sometimes we'll go from one concept, which is sort of easy to understand, and then we'll start to go to the next level. And that bridge can be a little bit difficult once we start with a new concept. For example, I think like a loop is a little bit, it's a big step from simple if statements. So once we start with learning something, I do my best to start with simple examples and go from there. But I think that the most challenging part is just firmly grasping what the new thing does. The best way to overcome that is to practice on your own. So that would be the most challenging part of my teaching is when I'm introducing a new concept, but we always overcome it. The
Yeah.
other,
So mhm,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Oh yeah, that's I just continue. Please continue. Yeah. So I sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I was sorry. I was wondering what was the first part of your question? I think I forgot. Was it what is what's fun
Oh
about?
yeah. So so what is the fun of programming? So
Yeah,
that's my question. Yeah.
it's the satisfaction of attempting a difficult problem and then solving it and then saying I did that. I like that was me. Like I put work and mental effort into that and I overcame that challenge. So that's really the fun part is the satisfaction and the reward. Also, I think it's really cool just to know how to code. It's a little bit of a perk when you're just when people say, "Can you code?" and you say, "Yeah," and they're like, "Wow, that's so cool." So that's nice to have. And something silly, but it still matters to me. Just the satisfaction I get like typing things out and seeing like the different colors pop up on the screen and on my editor is just it's like it's sort of it's peaceful in a way. So that's why I really like coding.
Okay, so yeah, so that lead to me another question. So this has been asked by many parents as well. So so it seems like you truly find joy, right? You really enjoy, you really find satisfactions in coding. But what if some kids, they don't really enjoy coding that much? They don't really like sitting in front of the computer for hours, right? But they are still good at coding. So they can still code. So do you think like they are still suitable to pursue a career in computer science, or in your personal view, not really, right? So I think this can be subjective, right? So, but I'm hearing a lot of the parents like they are pushing the kids to do programming because they believe this is like a easy to find a job and and basically like can make a lot of money, right? Um, but sometimes like I do see the kids struggle, like they don't really enjoy, like sitting in front of the computer for a long time, right? So how do you think of that? I mean, just like a more like discuss like the subjective view, right? So it doesn't have to be. I don't. There's no right or wrong answer. So just want to hear your view on that.
Yeah. In my personal opinion, if you're someone who really dislikes coding and just can't stand it, um, it makes the whole process of learning coding and just working on coding and going into that career a little bit challenging. There's always ways you can still do coding while pursuing something you like more. So you can minor in computer science. For example, my brother, he majored in philosophy, which is really risky because philosophy, there's no real jobs. But he minored in computer science, so he had a backup. And he's working at IBM now. So because he had that minor, it let him get that job. But then he also got to work on what he liked. So if you are someone who really dislikes coding, I still really recommend it's a really awesome skill to learn. It's the future. And there's still ways you can do what you like without mainly focusing on programming, right? Because it's not for everyone. But yeah.
Thank you, Daddy. I think this is really awesome for you to hear about your sharing. So Teddy is our the lead coding teacher instructor for our summer. So we have the Python class, we have the C++ class. So if you're interested to join Teddy's class, so you can reach out to our to our people. So to see, when we're going to get started. So I'm not going to bore everybody about the schedules for now. So I'm going to so we have about 20 minutes to 9 p.m. Eastern time. So just want to open up to see if the parents or the student, do you have any questions you want to ask? You can just put it on chat, or you can just raise your hands. I can unmute you. You can just ask the question. I'm just going to wait a little bit because it may take some time for people to type. Okay, so I see one question is like, when was coding first started?
So like the history, yeah.
Oh, the history? Oh, okay, okay, all right. I'm not sure what that means, but when was coding first started? Maybe like a history or something.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Teddy. Go ahead.
I need to reevaluate. I think it started like in the 1960s with a language called COBOL, which is really basic, like low level, which means like really just kind of gross code. And then once we got into the 70s and 80s, we picked up new languages like C, and then in the 90s and 2000s, we have C++ and Java. And so it really became popular around the 90s and 2000s. And even before that, but now it's like mainstream and everywhere. So it's a really, really nice thing to know how to do, because everything is digital now. So, and that is code. So yeah. But I really do need to learn about my history a bit more. So thanks.
So I want to add something. You know, I graduated from Penn. So Ted, I mean, you know, like the first computer was built in Penn. So it was
Awesome.
that there was still like a very big room, like the very huge room. Like they have like they still have that first computer about about like 2 rooms big, like display there. So it's like the first computers ever built. You know, right now it's like very small, right? So before that it's like two rooms that big. So it's quite interesting to you know to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Do we have any other questions? I don't think that. Okay. When was the first game coded? Teddy, I think this is a question you want to answer, or maybe just like look it up on Google, right? So you know.
I think it must have been something like Pong, where you have like two things and you're bouncing a ball back between each other. I don't know the exact year of
All right,
release.
actually, you know, like we get a more legit question. So Stephanie asked like when should kids start basic coding? So I think like maybe like Stephanie joined a bit later. So we can't talk about that before, but Chris could talk about it again, probably.
Yeah, I don't know like official research on this. I don't know when the best age is to start, but if I really think that as soon as your kid shows interest in learning to code, that's the best time. I know when I was like 13 or 14, my mom pushed me to program, and she was like, okay, you have to study this on the weekend for a couple hours, and I did, but I didn't really understand it or have the passion for it at the time, so I didn't retain much information. So I think the best point is when your student shows or your kid shows interest. But really, I still think it's any age, as long as you know basic arithmetic, it's very possible to start learning coding. So yeah.
Yeah, another aspect like basic coding, right? So basic coding, it is like but the vague concept definition. What do you mean by basic coding, right? So now when we talk about Python, that's like the real programming language. But if you talk about something more visualized, like Scratch, you know, so
Yeah.
those people, those like the kids, like they started to learn, you know, from first grade or even kindergarten. Some students started to do that, but it's not really like real programming, in my opinion. So I kind of ask my kids to move away from Scratch as soon as possible. So to start doing Python. So in my personal case, like my kid, he was right there, you know, like before. I think he went to bed already. So he started programming in 3rd grade. He's doing fine. He's doing okay. And if you think about, you know, like the John Hopkins, they have like the citywide program, you know, you heard about, right? So their programs, they have like the program as well, right? Programming courses. They basically, the kids can start in 3rd grade or 4th grade. So if you want to get started early, so you can really get started like as early as that. But the thing is like there are some drawbacks there, right? So if you try to use programming to solve some math operation problem, let's say exponential problem or factors of factoring, right? So the kids might not understand what is that, right? And sometimes you do need that kind of logic to be able to express some logic. So probably, you know, like the better is to when the kids go into middle school. So that might be, you know, like more normal ways. But if the kids are really talented, so you can start as elementary school. All right. So another thing is like it is really it's really depends, right? So the age doesn't mean much. Like some kids they are really talented even they are really young, but some kids even they are like in high school they still not really getting the concept of coding. So I would say if you want to start coding, so talk to us, talk to Teddy in private, have the kids talk to Teddy in private. So we can evaluate if the kids is ready to start, right? So I think that would be like a better approach than asking, like a specific in general, what is that? Um, okay, so it's another question from iPhone 3. Does other jobs have some sort of connections to coding? What are there jobs that doesn't have connection to coding? Terry, do you want to give it a try for this question?
Sure, yeah. I think programming is found in all like industries, like even like obviously in computer software, it's right there. But even if you're in food service, like think about if you go to a restaurant and you have a point of service system that your waiter or waitress like takes, like that is used in coding. So that restaurant hired somebody or a company to make that. So everything's all connected. We call it like the Internet of Things, right? Like your smart lights if you have an Alexa. So yeah, these days everything is just digital. So every industry has some opportunity for coding. But also, if you don't like coding, then there's plenty of careers that you never have to learn how to code. So I would say you can use coding to go into something unique, but you don't have to.
Yeah. So I would say a lot of. I just want to add on to that, Teddy. So I would say for in terms of jobs, so the job not related to coding in 10 years probably will be still like some kind of art or writing, like most likely art related, right? So some people they might still choose to do art, on paper. So I don't think it's going to go away. But eventually, as Teddy mentioned, that it's like Internet of Things, so everything is going to be connected. So I do see, I do understand, why many parents they say they want to push the kids to go to programming, to learn computer science because it is the future. So yeah, so it is future. It's going to benefit somehow, right? So Teddy says that we highly recommend for the kids to start learning some sort of programming. It's going to be rewarding. It's going to be rewarding in many ways. Do you agree, Teddy?
I agree. I totally agree.
All right. Okay. So I don't want to sound like I'm selling something, So, but that's the reason why you do computer science, right? So you love it, and then you do see this great future. So okay. So I answers that all the questions we have. So and if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us, right? So and then we will um okay, I think we can just ignore that for now, Daddy. So how long was the government using the internet? So I think this we are not really like doing like the history of internet here, right? So and I hope that you think of it the way like do you want to do coding? I like or why do you want to do coding, right? So or how do you get started to do coding, or do you think Teddy might help you to learn coding, right? So I want you to get if you're a student, I want you to think about this instead of some maybe it's more random questions, right? So I think that might be more the things I'm going to think about after this with this seminar. All right. So I hope you don't feel offended because I just want to explain, like what we trying to convey here. Okay. So what kind of program do we offer? So we offer yeah. So we have programs ranging from beginning level, medium level, and advanced level. So absolutely it's going to be suitable for beginners because like as Teddy mentioned that the first language we recommend to learn is Python. So, and Teddy has a lot of experience like leading the kids into, from 0 to 1, right? So that is uh, really like Teddy's strength, right? So definitely like we have classes which be suitable for beginners, and we don't want our class to be too big. So we are thinking to have 3 kids in one class. So Teddy can hand on hand kids to do coding and those kind of stuff. And our class, we are planning to start, in late July. I don't remember on top of my head. Actually, like my colleagues, you better have better dates. So and also depends on like our recruitment. So we are planning to recruit 3 students for each class. So basically, when we have like the 3 students, we're going to get started. I need to check with my colleagues, like how many students do we have each class, and then I think like please reach out to Seng Xuejun, our colleagues who will manage our operations, so he will know more about like when's class going to start, what time, what is the curriculum, those kind of logistic stuff. All right. So what is coding's main goal? Is it like to use the internet? Um, so I think like Teddy mentioned about that, many like coding can do a lot of stuff, right? So you can build video games, you can build internet. Actually, you can do a lot of different kind of things, right? You can solve problem, different kinds of problem, right? So you do robotics, you need the program to control it, right? So Teddy, do you want to add more on this question?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You can do so many things with it. Yeah, you can build web applications, you can build video games, you can build desktop applications. So really whatever you want to do that involves a computer, you can do with coding.
Yeah, another thing is like, let's say, like we cannot teach everything, right? So we teach like the Python level 1, Python level 2, C++. So for the kids to continue to explore, the kids still need to learn a lot of things on his own, right? So but the thing is like, you need someone to lead you into the world, right? You need someone to tell you, how to get into that, how you get started, or how can you learn by yourself, right? So those kind of stuff, if you don't have somebody to guide you, it's very difficult for you to get in. As Teddy mentioned earlier, right? So he kind of self-study by himself for a year or two, and then you find out that he did many of things wrong, right, without any guidance, and then he need to adapt, like the correct way to do it, and then that kind of like a detour, right? So it's really important to have like a good teacher, good instructor to lead you into that. But programming, it is like a practical science, right? So it's practical, it's like more engineering stuff. So you need to do a lot of practice. You need to finish. If you want to draw a program, you need to finish the homework Teddy assigned, right? So when you find something, you're not able to have programming run, so you need to debug it, right? Okay, so let's wait for 1 more minute to see if we have any other questions. So otherwise, we're going to call it the night. Okay, it's very interesting. Like usually, like with the audience have a lot of questions, then we have seminars. And especially today, we don't have like the big audience, like so it's like a very small groups. But maybe like when we try to speak in English, so it's a bit harder. But I think like maybe the kids like the kids usually they might not have many questions yet. All right. So again, so if you are interested in programming, you want to how to get started, If you learn more about programs, please contact us. And we'll post it on our group as well, about the schedule and something like that. So thank you, Teddy, for tonight, for
Thank
sharing
you.
a lot of it's just personal experience and teaching experience, and look forward to work with you for the rest of the summer.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
being
And
here.
thank you, Eric. Thank you all the parents and the students to listen to us spend the night with us tonight. Hope everybody have a good night. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.